Well, I thank all of you for being here. I'm the senior senator from the state of Indiana, and we have quite a history with daylight savings time. For those of you who have consumed old Parks and Rec episodes, you may have seen the one that focused on this particular topic. But let me walk through some of the things that have transpired in our state, and I'll weave in there some of the unique perspectives that Hoosiers have brought to this. Until 2006, our state was chronologically divided, you might say, with some counties observing daylight savings time and others not. And then in 2006, after years of debate, furious debate, our state decided to become the 48th state to adopt daylight savings time. In central Indiana, on the shortest day of the year, December 21st, the sun currently rises at 8:02 a.m. and sets at 5:23 p.m. Under permanent daylight savings time, sunrise would be delayed until 9:02 a.m., meaning Hoosiers would begin their day in darkness for much of the winter. What works for East Coast states, I'm hearing from many of my constituents, might not work for states like Indiana. We have 12 counties in the western part of the state that are in the central time zone. So Evansville, Indiana, if you're familiar with that. You get up near Chicago, what we call the region affectionately. So there are 80 other counties that are in the eastern time zone. So, you know, this sort of suggests that maybe a one-size-fits-all national policy on time changes doesn't take into account the regional differences that significantly impact daily life. I understand we have a charge, Article 1, Section 8, to facilitate interstate commerce. That was one of the major arguments of facilitating interstate commerce from the state level when we had this debate. So I anticipate we've heard that. I anticipate I'll hear more of that from my colleagues, but that has to be balanced against other considerations, of course. Leaving this decision to the states might allow local leaders who best understand their communities to weigh the specific needs of their residents. States along this line of argument are in a better position to evaluate how changes in daylight hours affect school schedules, commuting patterns, public safety, and economic activity. So I guess to the panel, do you believe that states like Indiana, with their unique cultures and geographical challenges and even histories as it relates to this issue, should have the flexibility to make their own decision, or do you think this decision should be standardized across the country? We'll begin with Mr. Yates, and I'll give everyone an opportunity to speak to that, if you like. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Senator Young, for the question. And I mentioned Indiana in my opening statement because it's a perfect example of why the Commerce Committee needs to approach this carefully, because to impose onto Indiana a solution that is the same as for New York and for New England is not the best interest of the people of Indiana and is a little bit rude. The one thing that I might say, though, is that I've never been to Indiana to testify, but I did go to Michigan to testify about their daylight saving time bill, and I went to Nebraska and to Kansas, which are states like Indiana on the western edge of their time zones and would make the most sense for them to be in standard time. And I advocated for that with the state senators and state representatives in those states. And all of them told me that all of their constituents don't care. They would rather, like they're in the middle of the winter, they're already going to school and going to work in the dark. And they would just like to have a little bit of time after school and after work to be in the light. So I said, okay, this is your state, you get to pick.
Thank you for your response. Mr. Karen.
Well, I'm no constitutional scholar for sure, but I don't see in the Constitution where it says that the federal government regulates time. I don't know if time falls under commerce, so it would naturally fall to the states if the federal government's not empowered to do so.
We have the view that everything falls under commerce.
I appreciate that. I will say, you know, I feel it's less of a state issue than it feels like a personal issue. And the ability to do, for example, to Senator One's comments, I can simulate or practice sleep hygiene whether the sun is up or down. but I can't simulate sun hygiene. I can't light the world when we want to be out there when it's dark, right? And so I think, to me, it comes down to which choice, if you were to land on one, is going to be harder to adjust to. We are already on daylight saving time for 8 months, so we'd have to adjust for 4 months. If you reverse it, then we're adjusting 8 months of our calendar.
Thank you, sir. Dr. Johnson, would you like to say something?
Yeah, I want to talk about the western edge of time zones. States like yours are more aligned with central time zones. So already on standard time, your sun is going to be overhead closer to 1. When we go to daylight savings time, now it's closer to 2. And we see that this really impacts health risks, mental health risks, safety risks, how kids do in school. I want to highlight one Indiana study. When you guys ended going the parts of the state that were on standard time.
Wait, you're coming with a study, you're citing a study? Are we allowed to do that in this? Is that consistent with the rules, Chairman Cruz? I'm kidding, of course.
So when part of Indiana ended standard time and went to seasonal daylight savings time, they found that kids' high school test scores were actually much better when they were on standard time and dropped when they switched to even seasonal daylight savings time. And that's not adding the exponential harms of bringing those 9 a.m. sunrises, like you said. So we would love every place to be more in line with the sun. And as you said, states have different needs to get closer to that ideal.
Thank you, Doctor. Dr. Harkey?
So we didn't have a preference in our study for one time or the other in terms of how you set it. What our study showed was that the risk of fatalities for pedestrians and bicyclists in particular rises at night. And it rises for all motorists as well at night. So the real key is regardless of which decision you make and which time zone you use, you've got to make sure that you're putting interventions in that it's going to help with those who are traveling in those dark hours, whether it is more in the morning or more in the afternoon and evening. That's the real key, and particularly for pedestrians and bicyclists, who are the overwhelming number of fatalities that are occurring in those dark hours.
I see. I'm very much over time. I see that Mr. Karen has something he wants to say, so I've been given lead by the chairman. Please, go ahead. Yes,
I just want to point out that Senator Scott's bill, the Sunshine Protection Act, kind of threads the needle. It creates a federal daylight saving time, but allows every state to opt out if they chose. So I think that's maybe the best answer here.
Good point. All right. Thank you, Chairman.